Hey guys, in this video, we're going to talk about how individuals will automatically lose their citizenship. Yes, automatic revocation of naturalization. Lots of big words. What I'm going to discuss in this unscripted video is a concern that I know some of you have out there, some US citizens today have out there, and it is this: can I automatically lose my citizenship? I came to this country as a foreigner and I applied for a green card. I was approved. And then years later, I became a US citizen. And so now, what is the state of affairs concerning someone like me? Can I automatically lose my citizenship in light of everything that is going on? And so in this video, I'm going to dive into the ways that an individual can, in fact, lose their citizenship and lose it very quickly in an automatic way. This is unscripted, as I've said before. I'm going to share some resources with you in addition to true stories that ICE and USCIS have put out there for us to know about. Cases involving people who have automatically lost their citizenship. If you're new to me, welcome to this channel. I'm Latoya McBean Pompey, an immigration lawyer in New York, working nationwide at McBean Law, where we believe in freedom. Type in freedom now if you also believe in this freedom that so many immigrants are crying out for. We're reachable at 914-898-9488 for a consultation or a case evaluation meeting. Lastly, friends, before you go today, be sure to support this channel by subscribing and hitting that notification bell so that you'll be the first to get notice of my videos each week. Let's talk about this process of automatically losing your citizenship. It happens for people primarily who have knowingly made a false statement during their naturalization process. It's called naturalization fraud, and it is a criminal conviction. There is a criminal code that says that if an individual commits naturalization fraud, they could be sentenced to up to 10 years in prison. And if they've committed some other crime that's related to terrorism or a drug-related offense, then they're looking at up to 25 years in prison. Again, guys, naturalization fraud is what this one is called. And it's not just the average, oh, I lied during my naturalization process. I omitted something on my application like a child, or, I misrepresented a fact. The government didn't know about it and I got through. Well, if you knowingly committed misrepresentation during the naturalization process, of course, you could go through a denaturalization process, which is a lengthier process to strip away your citizenship from you. But what I'm speaking about in this one is a criminal matter called naturalization fraud. Naturalization fraud, friends, as I've said, is a criminal offense. And this is the section of the law that references this. And it says, whoever knowingly procures or attempts to procure, contrary to law, the naturalization of any person or documentary or other evidence of naturalization or of citizenship shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 25 years if the offense was committed to facilitate an act of international terrorism, 20 years if the offense was committed to facilitate a drug trafficking crime, or 10 years in the case of the first or second such offense if the offense was not committed to facilitate such an act of international terrorism or a drug trafficking crime, or 15 years in the case of any other offense or both. So what does this mean? It means that if you procured your naturalization in a fraudulent way, then again, you're facing 10 years in prison if this is your first offense and it's not related to drug trafficking or terrorism. This is very serious, guys. To see how this works practically speaking, let's look at a recent story involving a Nigerian man who is a naturalized citizen and how this crime of naturalization fraud has led to his automatic revocation of his citizenship. This is the press release from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of North Carolina. Nigerian-born man previously convicted in an $80 million fraud case indicted on new charges of naturalization fraud. This is the story of a 51-year-old man named Okoros, who was born in Nigeria, and he was naturalized in 2018. This indictment, friend, alleges that he lied about his criminal history on his application to become a U.S. citizen. According to the indictment and other court documents, Okoros allegedly made knowingly and materially false statements under penalty of perjury on an application for naturalization. In response to one question, have you ever committed, assisted in committing, or attempted to commit a crime or offense for which you were not arrested? And he answered no. And then he took his oath of citizenship and he was naturalized in December of 2018. But friends, that question, which some people might find tricky, literally means, have you ever committed any crime even though you were never arrested of it? If the answer for that is yes, yet you said no on this N-400 naturalization application, well, years later, the government could find out about what you had committed. And if they look back on your naturalization application and see that you said no when you should have said yes, they can charge you criminally with this naturalization fraud crime. Now let's go back to Okoros' story. On September 19th, 2024, following a jury trial in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, Okoros was convicted of conspiracy to commit mail, wire, and bank fraud. He was also convicted of 2 additional counts of wire fraud, 1 count of mail fraud, and 1 count of bank fraud. He was sentenced to a term of 100 months and ordered to pay over $22 million in restitution. According to the jury's verdict, Okoros committed these crimes from at least August 13, 2008 through January 1st, 2011. He was not arrested until after he naturalized in 2018. So immigration officials were unaware of his crimes prior to granting citizenship. Did you catch that? Here you have Okoros, who committed these crimes before he even applied for naturalization. He was never arrested for these crimes. So he then filled out his N-400 application and said, nope, I've never committed any crime for which I was never arrested for. Then he became a citizen, and then years later, he was in fact arrested for those very crimes. And now the government is saying, we're going to take away your citizenship automatically. It's going to be revoked. Okoros is charged in a 3-count indictment with naturalization fraud. If convicted, he faces a maximum penalty of 30 years in prison, as well as the automatic revocation of his U.S. citizenship. Friends, this is how it works. Now let's take a look at how ICE operates behind the scenes to investigate these types of crimes. And in fact, they laid out for us on their website exactly what resources they're looking at to come to the conclusion that you should be criminally charged for naturalization fraud. On its website, ICE reminds us that they find, prosecute, and remove convicted felons who lie on immigration forms. And here's how they've outlined it for individuals who are convicted of this naturalization fraud. Everyone who applies for naturalization must truthfully answer a series of questions to show that they have a good moral character required to become a U.S. citizen. And some of the questions that are asked on the applications include questions like, have you ever committed a crime or offense for which you were not arrested? Then they tell us exactly how it works on their end. ICE uses digital tools, including databases shared by other federal agencies, to identify people who committed crimes before or during naturalization and were convicted. And then they give you an example here. Say a person committed a crime in 2020 and wasn't caught. They became a naturalized citizen in 2021, and they were tried for and convicted of the 2020 crime in 2025. This person lied when answering the question, have you ever committed a crime or offense for which you were not arrested? they had committed a crime and they were only convicted after they were awarded American citizenship. And then they tell us that they work with partners such as the U.S. Attorney's offices, ICE attorneys from the Office of the Principal Legal Advisor's Denaturalization Program, the Department of Justice's Office of Immigration Litigation, ICE's Document and Benefit Fraud Task Force, USCIS's Fraud Detection and National Security Directorate, the U.S. Department of State's Diplomatic Security Service, and the FBI's Criminal Justice Information Services Division. And then these are the types of crimes that they have been successful with litigating: aggravated identity theft, child molestation, embezzlement, kidnapping, money laundering, narcotics trafficking, tax fraud, kidnapping, and some others. So USCIS also played a very big part by helping to convict that Nigerian man of that fraud case. On USCIS's website on June 17th, they have a press release also talking about this case and the part that they played in helping the government to convict him. So USCIS, friends, is an active participant in these activities. Friends, this is not fun stuff to talk about or think about, but I'm doing this video because I know many people are out there wondering whether they could lose their citizenship in an automatic way. Then this is just an overview of how this naturalization fraud criminal conviction leads to automatic revocation of naturalization. Just so you know, I didn't pull up the court cases involving this, but there is a case called U.S. v. Garcia, and it's from 2018 out of the Fourth Circuit, which held that automatic revocation of citizenship upon conviction of criminal offense of making false and misleading statements about criminal history during naturalization application is required. It's an automatic revocation of citizenship, friends. And then there's another case from 2014, also out of the Fourth Circuit, which supports this automatic revocation of naturalization once a person is convicted of unlawfully procuring naturalization. So this is some serious stuff, guys. Under this administration, friends, the government is looking for these examples and ways to convict individuals who have committed naturalization fraud. If you're accused of something of that nature, it's a very serious issue. And for some people, they might be able to defend themselves successfully against this automatic revocation. However, it is a very, very complex process. I hope you found this helpful. Be sure to share this information with others. Comment below. Let me know your thoughts about what I've shared in this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.